It is 1 o'clock, so we'll get started, and hopefully everyone filtering in a little bit later won't be confused as we go along. I'd like to welcome everybody back to Education Week 2025. My name is Daniel. I am the Product Education Team Leader here at BGL, and I'll be running through today's session, which is all about accounting work papers, how you can best save time, and what are the latest improvements or additions we've added in relation to AI and automation within the screen. Before we do begin, we'll just run through some housekeeping matters. As this will extend through the entire week, all of these webinars are being recorded. They'll be recorded and they'll be uploaded at a later date to the BGL YouTube channel, so you can always refer back to these webinars in case you needed to have a look at them once again. What you'll find is some of our other Education Week webinars are also on the YouTube channel in case you needed to investigate and find some other content that you might need. In addition to that, as it mentions, all attendees will receive an email with a link to the recording, as well as the PowerPoint slides included. And finally, if you do have any questions during today's webinar, please use that Q&A function in Zoom. All participants are on listen-only mode, so if you did want to ask a question, feel free to use that Q&A function. I do have a number of colleagues here with me who can help to answer some of the questions, as well as we'll have a short section towards the end, just in case you had some additional questions you wanted to ask that you didn't get the chance to. So, what is Education Week 2025 all about? Well, we are doing a number of different webinars all throughout the week, covering all of our different softwares we support here at BGL. This particular webinar will be focused on the middle two, as you can see, Simple Fund 360 and Simple Invest 360, as Workpapers is not included in CAS 360 or SmartDocs 360 itself. However, there are many other webinars available for you, and here is a timetable. I'll also post a link to the BGL Education Week page on our website there, just in the Zoom chat right now. So there are plenty of other webinars. For instance, the one later this afternoon is all about CAS 360 and automated document reminders. So if there is some information there that might interest you, feel free to either attend those or watch the recording that comes out later for that one, including as well any of the webinars that are going to be recorded throughout the week. So here is the full timetable there. For any more details, just click the link in the Zoom chat there. Let's get on to the agenda for today. So we are covering the Workpapers screen. And for this, what we'll do to begin is just get an overview of Workpapers. There might be some of you watching today who might be putting your hand up and saying, I've never seen this screen before, or I don't interact with this screen at all. That's perfectly fine. This first lesson is going to be all for you. So I'll run through everything with the Workpapers screen, give you a brief rundown of all the functions, what they might be included with, and then I'll just run you through a general process of how we'd expect you to use Workpapers itself. After we get through that, we'll be all caught up to speed about what Workpapers is, and we can discuss some of the AI or automation improvements that have happened in the past year or so. One of the major ones for that involves document tagging, essentially improving the workflow, meaning you need to put in less effort to get the documents in the right place. And I'll run through the processes that are available for those there. For the third section, we'll just run through some best practice tips. So anything that might not fall into the previous category, as well as some things that I've observed either looking at different support tickets that are available, or just my experience with clients and what they've used in the Workpaper screen, what they've said is successful, and maybe what they've been confused about. So some points going from there. So the main question is, what is Workpapers? If you've never seen the screen, a brief description of it is on screen for you here, and this is taken directly from our article on our Knowledge Center of how to use Workpapers. But as a brief summary of it, the main things is that it stores documents and it records all the evidence for you. So as you work through during the financial year in Simple Fund 360 or Simple Invest 360, all of those balances will be updated in the accounts, and the documents related to them will be automatically attached, the ones that the software supports. Given that, you also have the option to upload additional documents, essentially putting all of your documents into the one place which then you can access at any time by just simply logging in into the software and going to a particular screen. So that's the main purpose of Workpapers. There are some additional functions around there to essentially provide additional validation in the process. But if you wanted to use Workpapers for one purpose, it would be storing and keeping all of the evidence in the same place. In terms of an overview of Workpapers, here is how I would break down the screen for you, generally into the 5 points above. And I'll jump over to the software and we can run through these 5 points here, and then we'll just go into them in a bit more detail. So I'll tab over to the software right now. In order to navigate to the Workpapers screen, first we'll need to select an entity, so either your SMSF, trust, individual, or company, whatever that may be. And then you can navigate to Workpapers. If you're on the old left sidebar screen, that would be under Reports and Workpapers here. Some of you may not know, but there is actually an updated left sidebar. Just quickly, if you weren't aware, you can go to App Switcher to Settings and choose to change that to the new sidebar menu. Just in case that is applied to you, you might be confused about me telling you to go somewhere, and that's not quite there. So if you are using that new sidebar menu, then your Workpapers would be under Review and Workpapers there. But we'll use the old one because that's the most commonly used one we have right now. So on the left, we're heading to Reports and then going to our Workpapers screen. And let's run through those 5 points about Workpapers now. So number one is to do with our default settings. These are accessed on the top right of the screen. You select Settings, and you're allowed to change the default settings applied to your Workpapers when they're generated. As you can see, you can change these for SMSFs, trusts, companies, or individuals. And in these sections, you can select individual accounts, choose to either add or remove reports as necessary, and then you can edit the checklist items if desired as well. After those default settings have been applied, you can choose to generate the Workpapers. From here, you're looking to select a particular financial year, as well as a preparer and a reviewer for your Workpapers. And we'll run through that process just a little bit later. If there are no balances within the financial year, naturally you're not going to be able to generate Workpapers. However, I have prepared one earlier. Once you have generated your Workpapers, it will look like this. There we go. So we do have generate Workpapers. If we did want to refresh the Workpapers, essentially refresh the balances as well as the documents that have might have received updates to their balances as well, we can use the refresh button, which is now appearing directly next to it. You can click refresh, click OK, and that will regenerate your Workpapers as well. The third function here, which if you might have forgotten, is to do with our account review, is the main processing for Workpapers. So when it comes to what I mean by account review is that we're going to go into each of these sections underneath here. Apologies for these errors as we are in a training environment, so we'll experience that a little bit. So our account sections here, we can click into these. And then from here, we have a couple of different tasks. We'll be asked to review the balance of the account to ensure that's correct, which is right here, and we can mark that. We'll be asked to have a look at some of the supporting documents. So for instance, we have the distribution reconciliation report here. Some warnings may appear related to that particular account, but the other thing to be aware of is the checklist. So making sure we're going through this checklist here and ticking these tasks off as we go along. So that is the account review section. After you've gone through and reviewed the accounts, the next thing to be aware of is the statuses. And as you can see, as we've started processing these Workpapers, the status has updated to in progress. The idea for this is to eventually work through all of your Workpapers, updating the statuses, and eventually getting to a point where they have been completed after being reviewed. Some of the most common statuses that we do use are the ready for review status here, as well as the completed status. But as you can see, we have a number of different options that you can select from. The reason we commonly use the ready for review status is because of the last function on the work paper screen, which is to do with our preparer and the reviewer we selected earlier. But essentially, when it comes to the status, we'd expect you to work through each of the account reviews. Once they're completed, you can select the relevant status, for instance, ready for review here. Once your accounts are ready for review, we can use the final function on the screen, which is to do with notifying. If we select this notify option up the top here, we can choose to notify either the preparer or the reviewer. What this means is that the preparer, which is typically the person who generates the work papers and works through all of the documents, checklist items, reviewing the balances, they can essentially work through these accounts and set them all as ready for review. Once they've done this, they can select Notify Reviewer and then state that the entity is ready for review. What this will do is we'll send a notification via email to the person who was selected as the reviewer. They'll be prompted to log into the software, review the work paper screen, and work through this, which typically involves them reviewing the balances, determining if they're correct or not, and making a decision whether to confirm they're correct or to maybe go back for review. So in that case, what they might do is they might click in, review the particular account, and then they can choose to update the status to completed. Another thing they could do, for instance, is if the balance is incorrect, they might choose instead to say that there is a rework required. So they actually are requesting that the preparer go in, review the account to ensure the balances are correct. They can then choose to notify the preparer in return, stating that a rework is required. Once again, sends an email to that particular user, prompting them to log in and complete the work papers section. And that is everything to do with the work paper screen functions. There are some little functions here and there, such as the lock function here, as well as exporting documents, but we'll get to them just a little bit later. Hopefully that generally explains the process of using work papers. You'd work through the accounts here, determining the statuses of them, determining if they're correct, update the status, and then if you're using that to prepare a reviewer function, you can go through that process as well. But as we mentioned, those are the 5 points that I would essentially separate the work paper screen into. Let's get into the second section now, which is all about the latest improvements that have come to the work papers screen. There's not a lot that we can actually add in addition to work papers, given that the whole idea is simply collating information. There's not really a lot of processing of information. But one of the big things we've aimed to do is to essentially reduce the pain points for getting the documents uploaded to Simple Fund 360 or Simple Invest 360 and having them put into the correct accounts. And that's what the first point here aims to do, which is automatically linking particular documents to your work papers screen. This can be done through a couple of different methods, and we have been adding these as we've been adding new features to the software. The first one here being document tagging. So I'll show you exactly how that works right now. When it comes to document tagging, this is done when you upload the document itself to the software. So we can go to our document screen, which can either be under reports documents, or we can select that up the top as well. Once we're on the screen and it loads in here, we can simply select upload. And we do have a variety of different options. You can choose to scan documents from a phone if that's more appropriate, or just use one of our other upload options. What we're going to do here is I'll select a bank statement to upload for us here, which then will prompt us to fill out some other information. The important thing when it comes to work papers is selecting the folder at the top here. Selecting the folder allows you to preemptively choose where this particular document will be attached to, whether it's in one of these schedules here, through the financial statements, permanent documents, other documents, pension documents, or the estate, or any of the individual accounts. This one was a bank account. So what we can actually do is scroll down to banks, which is bank accounts here. We can also choose to actually select specific accounts. So if you had particular statements that were related to a specific security or anything in particular, you do have the option to select those specific details. Another option may be for your pension accounts. If you wanted to select specific member pension accounts, you can select those details as well. But we'll just simply select our bank account for the time being. We do have additional tags as well, though these tags are typically mainly revolving around filtering on the document screen itself. So we've selected this particular option for the folder, selected the financial year, so 2024, and click Upload. That is done, which is great. You can see that it's tagged right here, which is wonderful. The next thing that we need to do is just go back to the Workpapers screen. In a perfect world, you would have uploaded this bank statement a long time ago when processing the fund and would have had that tagged automatically so that when you went to generate the Workpapers, that would be automatically attached. However, if I can refresh these Workpapers, then I can show you in our bank account here that we do have our bank statement.pdf that we uploaded previously. Given that this is a custom document, we do have a couple of different options, such as marking this as permanent. We can choose to edit this attachment, just simply editing the name of the document, and we can also choose to delete the attachment as well. So that's one of the ways that we can get one of those documents flowing through to Workpapers from the beginning when we upload it to the software. The next one we'll have a look at is a little bit more automated and a little bit more out of sight, out of mind, and that is to do with our distributions or our distribution statements. One of the recent innovations with our distribution tax automation screen is that you can upload your personal distribution statements and essentially use those to extract your tax components or the tax data that exists on that document. I'll show you that right now. What I believe I've done is I've already uploaded this document just so that SmartDocs has been given enough time to process this. So we'll head to our document screen here and find our NDQ's tax statement, which is right here, this one. You can see that it has been analyzed by SmartDocs, which is our AI system here that is used for a lot of these analysis because it is purple and has the SD icon there. If we click into it as well and head to our transactions section, so we have details and transactions here, you can see that it's recognized it as an annual tax statement for a particular year, which is great. That's exactly what we want. Generally, all you need to do is upload the distribution statement and then SmartDocs will automatically analyze and record that as an annual tax statement. You don't need to do anything after uploading. But once that's been completed, the second step is to use that in the distribution tax automation screen. That screen is under compliance, distribution tax automation, and I'm not going to go into great detail about this. We do have some other webinars online about the DTA screen, as well as how to use it. But as a brief summary, if you wanted to extract data from your documents, you should go to the SD review icon here in the top left. If you select this icon, you will be able to select or see all of the annual tax statement documents that have been uploaded. And all you need to do is essentially select the code and change it to a particular security. So that will attach to the security ndq.ax. And if we click save, that should update the document for us. Let's say we go back to the document screen and have a look at that one. What you'll find is that after processing that on the distribution tax automation screen, we have this document is now tagged appropriately. So by simply going through that process of using that SmartDocs document, it's automatically sorted it into the folder so that when we go to our Workpapers screen and generate those Workpapers, it'll be automatically attached. We'll have a look at that when we refresh in just a moment. But we do need to go through our third one, which is our property dashboard. This one is fairly quick, and I'll make it fairly quick for you because it is simply, I believe it's about 3 clicks. If we go to our property dashboard under investments on the left, property dashboard here, the place that you can upload documents is related to your valuations. So if we go to add in this particular section, then we can choose to add a source document here. Choose add source document. From here, you can choose whichever document is appropriate for you. I just have as an example, just a random rental summary that we could use. But once again, you're given the option to confirm how this is being categorized. It's automatically selected our property. That was on the property dashboard. And simply once we click upload, that'll be attached to that property in Workpapers. So that's the idea of uploading through that screen. If we jump to our Workpaper screen now, and once again click refresh to update our balances, as well as our documents that have been attached. And hopefully, if we navigate to our real estate screen, this document appears to have not been uploaded properly, but let's have a look at the distribution tax. There we go. So in terms of our distribution statement, our annual tax statement here in 23800, we can see that it has been automatically attached to this particular document, this balance. If we click this, we can view any of the attached documents here, but also you can see the specifically attached document on the screen as well. Another function of the Workpaper screen is the ability to view transactions related to accounts as well. So there are additional functions within the screen, essentially providing you with additional functionality, but they're not necessary to use Workpapers. But that's the NDQ tax statement right there. The last thing that we'll cover when it comes to some of our improvements we've recently added is the connection to workflow jobs. Again, this is another screen within our software, essentially allowing you to create task lists to work through for any of your employees or any users within the software. You could essentially go through them and tick them off, but there are some automation things that can be included related to Workpapers. If we go to our workflow screen, which is just in workflow on the left side, going to workflow jobs, what we can do is create a job related to our entity. So in that case is going to be our fund. We can select our entity and we can select a template if desired. There is already a Workpapers template involved, but you can also use these functions within this template in your own templates as well when you create them. There we go. Looking at the Workpapers task, we'll be asked to select dates as well, including a due date here, in which case we can select different details. And I'm not going to go into further details because it is workflow in a separate screen. But if I click attach, the one thing to be aware of are these triggers, these task triggers here. So this is the task list that you can go through and essentially say, I've created entries, I've generated Workpapers, this is great. The next thing is to mark Workpapers as review. This has an additional trigger, and what it's saying is that when Workpapers are set as ready to review, this task will say that it is waiting on an auditor. So the idea behind that is, as you've been working through your Workpapers, eventually you will get to the point where you can select them and they'll all be updated. So you can bulk update these to ready for review. There we go, ready for review there. Hopefully, if we jump back to our workflow jobs, that will have been automatically updated. There we go. So the status of our task, our Workpapers training task, has now been updated because of the fact that we have updated the Workpapers status. So that is one of the triggers that we've added, direct connection to our Workpapers screen. This other one is just when Workpapers are completed. So the main ones, or the two ones we have there, is triggers when Workpapers are ready for review or when they're completed. Those are the two ones there that you can use. So just minor little optimizations, especially if you're already using the workflow jobs screen, you can essentially add those into your regular task list and have them automatically update as you go through the Workpapers screen. All right, let's get into the last section, which is just a bit about some of our best practice tips and ideas I found are best to keep in mind when using Workpapers. The first thing is when to use Workpapers, and I find this generally comes in twofold. What I found is that a lot of our clients do also have their own solution to Workpapers or keeping their documents, and that's completely fine. What you can do is essentially use Workpapers as an additional resource to keep some of your documents in there, as well as have an option to download these as well. The second thing is when you should actually start using the Workpapers screen when processing during a financial year. And we typically recommend to do that after you've completed processing the financial year and have created entries to that end of the financial year. Because you're not going to get the benefits of Workpapers until all of the balances are in there, so that you can essentially confirm between the documents that have been generated and the full final balances in the accounts. The second note is that exporting Workpapers is available, and you might choose to use one of the particular options there depending on your choice. So, in our Workpapers screen, underneath Export, you have the option to export Workpapers, which exports everything, including all of the schedules, all of the notes that have been added to any of the Workpaper sections, as well as all of the documents. In addition, you can generate these separately if you wanted the notes only, schedules only, or the documents. So for instance, if we did the schedules and the documents as well, these are going to generate automatically. The documents download as a zip file to your computer. As you can see here, we have a nice little zip file that has downloaded here and one that I did for training. And these contain all of the documents that are attached in your Workpapers. And this other one is the schedules. So it's essentially the list of Workpapers, as well as each of the account's specific details and their checklists within that. So you can download the relevant documents to you. Another thing you can do is select additional options on the left side and only choose to download the export the selected sections. So let's say you needed some information about your bank accounts as well as your real estate properties. You can simply tick those and then choose to export the selected specifically. The third option that we have here is to do with the notify system and the user role access. One thing that I have found some of our clients doing is they will invite their auditors or someone out, not necessarily outside of their company, but who might not be directly involved with processing their fund or their company, trust, or individual, and they'll essentially give them access to the Workpapers screen. How you can do that is via your user settings. So if you head to the app switcher, you can head to settings. Sorry, not app switcher. You can head next to it to the user option there. You can also select the app switcher and head to users as well. Going to our role settings section, which is you do require admin access. What I have found is people will typically add a new role. They might add it for Workpapers. And what they will do is they will disable every single group except for the specific Workpapers one, which is under reports. If they are able to view and edit reports, they can view and edit Workpapers here, and this will only give them access to the Workpapers screen itself. So in case there was a user or someone you wanted to give access to, but you didn't want them to allow them to edit any other part of the software, that is one of the options for you. You can essentially set up a role for them, attach that role to their user to restrict their access to the Workpapers screen itself. I'll jump back to Workpapers here. And the final point we do have on this particular screen is refreshing and regenerating Workpapers. This is probably the most common support query that I have found related to it is the confusion about what refreshing or what regenerating work papers does. And I can imagine, I do apologize, I haven't been able to pay too much to the questions coming through, but this question might have already been asked. When it comes to refreshing, you can see there is a uh, brief section of text just describing it. Essentially, what it's saying is any of the progress that you've put into the work papers so far, essentially to upload documents, additional documents, or complete the checklists, those will not be reverted. So you will keep the progress that you've been working through. Anything that has changed will be updated to rework required if there has been changes that have come through. And then that is essentially what refresh does. You cannot regenerate work papers for the same financial year after that's been done. It essentially will prevent you from doing so. The general idea is you go for the refresh button there. The other thing you can do is if you had a specific report that you wanted to regenerate, there is that regenerate reports button within there as well.